say, I mean, it seems like a silly question, but is this too much football, or can there never be too much football?
There can never be too much football. I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, to see much more teams now in the competition, more football matches, it's exciting. And then we're getting to see some nations that we've never seen before a huge tournament.
Yeah. What's the biggest thing you're looking forward to, do you think?
It's more the players.
Okay.
You know, some of the Asian players, you know, you want to see them go out on a high. You want to see them put big performances in because it's their last tournament. Then you want to see, like, the young players, the emerging players. Who's going to set the World Cup alight? Who's the favourites? Who's going to be the flops? You know, there's always a big team that doesn't turn up on the day, that go out early. So it's going to be an interesting one. And hopefully it lives up to all the expectations.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? It is time for it now. And as ever, millions of fans will be desperately hoping England can end their wait for a major trophy. In 3 Lions, they sang about 30 years of hurt, didn't they? Now you can make that 60 years of hurt. There's been some near misses of late, and our football correspondent, Rob Dorsett, has been there to see it all. And he joins us live from Miami now. He will replace Thomas Tuchel, but not realistically, obviously. Hi, Rob. Nice to see you. Look, you're there in the heat of Miami. It's all going on. You've had the rain. You've had the sunshine. We're hearing it's heats and storms that have been the problem. Is that right? What are you feeling there at the moment?
Yeah, do you know what? I think it's a strange one, Vicky. The reason England picked this place, the southeast coast of the US, is because it's the most inhospitable part of North America at this time of year. It's really hot. It's really humid. Temperatures in the high 30s, humidity 75% and above. Trying to force these England players to acclimatise. The phrase that I've heard repeatedly around the camp has been making the players comfortable with the discomfort. But the reality is, yes, when we saw England train a couple of days ago for the first time, it was unbearable. It was incredibly, fiercely hot when the England players took to the pitch. But other than that, it's been like this. Cloudy, overcast, breezy, a little bit cool. So I'm not sure that England and Thomas Tuchel and the sports scientists at the FA have got exactly what they planned when they came out here. OK, they've got another week to go where they'll experience some of those temperatures, and the forecast is due to change a little bit. But that's been their plan. What did strike me from that first training session a couple of days ago was just how businesslike those England players were. The game faces were on right from the start. There was none of the fluffy, community-based training sessions we might have seen in the past. Certainly I remember that in Russia. Certainly I remember it in Qatar when they brought the locals along. It seemed very light-hearted. This was straight down to business with an intense training session, and that's what we know they've been doing ever since in the last couple of days, away from the cameras.
Well, it's interesting you say it's been intense, because actually this couldn't be further from Qatar, could it? You know, it's across 3 continents, it's vast. We've got 48 teams in it as well now. It all adds up to actually a really tough tournament for the person or the team that goes on to eventually win it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, you made the point there. There's an extra game. There's the round of 32, which makes it very, very difficult. There are more matches, especially for the English players who've been based in the Premier League. We know how tough the Premier League is. We know how much it takes out of players when they get to the back end of that season and they have to go again in hot conditions. For me, that was the reason that England didn't win the Euros two years ago, was because of the heat. It was because of the exhaustion of the players. Harry Kane strolling around the pitch in the final, Jude Bellingham likewise, because they just didn't have the energy to go again. The hope is that England are better prepared this time, and certainly we're going into a major tournament where, whisper it quietly, we're not talking about any England players with significant injury problems. I say that very, very carefully because there's still 2 friendly matches to play and an awful lot of training sessions. But that is a big boost to Thomas Tuchel and a real hope. But yes, with the flights, with the humidity and the heat, with the interruptions to matches that we're expecting because of lightning threats and torrential rain, it's going to be very, very tough for England and any of these teams who want to go all the way to the final.
Rob, like you said there, the England players, they're sharp, they're running around, they seem fully focused. But the biggest talking point is, before you've seen this England team get there, the number 10. Have you had any indication of who they might be?
Not yet. And do you know what, Jay? They're going to keep that very tightly under wraps. We saw that opening training session where it was very intense, but it was a loosener. Everybody was out on the pitch playing. It's that big debate between Jude Bellingham and Morgan Rogers. We've seen that Morgan Rogers, who I know you're a big fan of, who's been absolutely outstanding for Aston Villa and for England throughout the whole of qualifying, it's him against the huge stellar name that everybody knows in world football, who's still the biggest star in this England squad by a distance, despite Harry Kane and the others, Jude Bellingham. And it'll be interesting to see what Tuchel goes with in that opening game. It's Jude Bellingham who's been given the number 10 shirt. Morgan Rogers has got the number 17 shirt. Should we read too much into that? Probably not. But maybe there's something to talk about there.
Oh, of course we will read everything into that. Look, let's talk about the history, because in the last 8 years, you know, they've reached that semi-final at a World Cup, they've reached the quarterfinals, they've been in 2 Euros finals as well. So what does Thomas Tuchel have to do in order to go that step further and bring this trophy home?
At last.
Well, there's a few things that he's tried to... Listen to you two getting carried away. There's a few things that he's tried to do and that have felt like a very distinct difference from Gareth Southgate. He's made it clear to the players from the word go that he's not interested in big names and big reputations. If you look at the players that aren't here, you get that straight away. No Trent Alexander-Arnold, no Phil Foden, no Cole Palmer, no Harry Maguire. Those are big names in world football that he's left out because he wants what he calls a brotherhood. He wants the mood within the camp to be the best it can possibly be. Now, Gareth Southgate started all of that, the positivity, the mood in the camp. But it feels with Thomas Tuchel, he's taken it one step further from that, and he's less interested in reputation and more interested in how players slot into the jobs that he wants them to do. And so I think that's a distinct difference. And I think you'd have to say as well that there was a lot of criticism towards the end of Gareth Southgate and some of the tactical decisions a lot of people, including myself, felt he needed to make in big games at key times when England were on the back foot, when they were being overrun by the opposition, and he didn't do that. Thomas Tuchel is an elite tactical manager. With Anthony Barry alongside him, who we've heard an awful lot from today on Sky Sports News, they're a dream pairing right there. And remember, Tuchel came into a Chelsea side halfway through the season and won them the Champions League, out-nousing Pep Guardiola in that final against Manchester City. So he has that tactical nous. I think the FA bosses hope all of that combine to make England the perfect storm.
Rob, we spoke about it a few weeks ago now, like you said there with Thomas Tuchel, the fact that he's not scared to upset people. But then on the other hand, if he was to go and start Jude Bellingham, you know, that hasn't really done much in his last 2 squads, would that be him then caving in to the social media stories?
No, I don't think it would be. I don't think he would be. But he's his own man. Thomas Tuchel will make these decisions and be unapologetic about it. And look, there's been a narrative throughout his 16 months in charge of England manager, as England head coach, I should say, about what is his relationship with Jude Bellingham like. Look, I think he's a very, very clever man who sends messages to players. I think he deliberately didn't pick Ollie Watkins for the camp in March to give him a kick up the backside and say, you're not playing well enough, mate, you've got to get on it. Of course, Ollie Watkins had a stellar end to the season for Aston Villa, won the Europa League, scored 6 goals in his last 5 games. He's in the England squad. I just wonder whether he's been doing the same with Jude Bellingham, that saying, look, you don't automatically get a place in my starting 11, you've got to earn it. And we've seen Jude Bellingham out in training the other day. He looked an absolute specimen. He looked lean. He looked really hungry for it. And I wonder if that was Thomas Tuchel giving him the kick up the backside that he needed as well. I wouldn't be surprised if it was Jude Bellingham who was in that starting 11 against Croatia in a couple of weeks' time.
Who do you want in there, though?
It's not about Rob.
I like to put Rob on the spot.
Look, I'll be honest. I'll be honest. I want Bellingham in there. I think he has the I think he has the big game heritage. He has the experience at a major tournament that Morgan Rogers doesn't have. I think Morgan Rogers has an awful lot. I don't want this to come in any way as a criticism of Morgan Rogers. I think he's been exceptional for Aston Villa and for England in the whole of qualifying. He's been the only England player who has started every single one of those 8 qualifying matches. That tells you exactly what Thomas Tuchel thinks of him. But Jude Bellingham is a generational talent. He has the X factor. He's something different. For me, he's got to play in the big games. He's got to play from the start.
Brilliant from you, as always, Rob. We will be back to you in the next hour. Yeah, fascinating to hear from Anthony Barry there. Let's go back to Miami now, and we can join Rob Dorsett, who was asking those questions there. Lovely to see you again, Rob. You know, he was talking about the heat, wasn't they, at the end there? And everyone's talking about it. And obviously, it's going to become the subject of this World Cup, I think. So how intense is it, do you think, out there at the moment? And do you think that England are going to do everything they can to counter it?
their entire build-up has been based around trying to deal with this heat. And look, I'll be honest, this is a bit of a false situation we've had yesterday and today. It's been cooler, it's been breezy. You can see those ominous dark clouds building over my shoulder. We can feel the humidity building as that storm's approaching. It's going to be really difficult for the players, and that's not a good situation for England. Nations that play in hot conditions all the time will have an advantage over England for sure. But I just want to reiterate that possible route to the final that England might have to come across. Because, look, we spoke under Gareth Southgate in previous tournaments where the draw's been pretty favourable to England. It hasn't been in this one. If England win this World Cup, my gosh, they will have earned it. Let me just spell it out to you. If they finish top of Group L, then their last 32 game, that extra round, is going to be against a team who's probably qualified third in their group. Could be Uzbekistan or somebody like that. Then it gets really tough. The last 16, Mexico in Mexico City at altitude. Boy, that's a tough game for England to get through. The quarter-final, Brazil, here in Miami, in the heat of the summer sun in Miami. Semi-final, Argentina in Atlanta. And then the final in New York City, possibly France or Spain. If England are going to win this World Cup, they've got to beat the very best nations on the planet. And they've got to do it consistently. There is no easy route for them.
Rob, listening to what you're saying and everyone's talking about regarding the heat, I actually think the heat is secondary to the travel, because all of these players we're talking about, especially at the biggest nations, they all play in Europe anyway. So there's no advantage there. I think it's the travelling that's going to tire the players out a lot more, especially with America, Mexico, Canada being so grand.
I think that's a really fair point, Jay, I really do. And it's something that, again, England's logistics team and the backroom staff have been very, very conscious of. It's why they are basing themselves in Kansas City. We've been out there. It feels hotter than it has done here in Miami, in truth. But England aren't playing in Kansas City. The FIFA didn't want them there. The Netherlands and Argentina are based there. They got first choices of the hotels and the training bases. But England so wanted to be in Kansas City, Missouri, so that nowhere in North America was longer than a 3.5-hour flight. And if England top their group, they will not have to play on the west coast of America at all in this tournament. And so that's a great situation for them to be in. It's why they've picked it. It's been carefully planned against the wishes of FIFA to try and minimise that travel time. But look, the reality is, you're quite right. It's a 3.5-hour flight from here in Miami across to Kansas City when they first have their base. It's a similar journey across to Dallas, maybe 2 hours back to Dallas when they play their opening game. 2 or 3 hours over to Boston. They've got to build all that flight time in the day before they play a game, and that's going to challenge the sports scientists in the FA and the physios to the full extreme.
Yeah, it will, won't it? Let's talk about the players then, because Harry Kane, arguably a player that's in the form of his life, and actually we were talking about it before we even came to air, you know, the fact that he is probably the best striker in the world right now. He has to be.
Not probably, Vicky.
OK, he is. Jay said he is. And I'll go with everything that Jay says. You know, is he underrated, do you think? Does he come into this tournament with people kind of underestimating him a little bit?
I don't think he's underrated, but I think he's almost a given. He's been there for so long for England now as the focus and the talisman of this England side at every major tournament since Russia in 2018, that we kind of don't mention him. We talk about the fringe players, who's going to get in the squad, who's not, who's going to start in the starting 11. Well, we know Harry Kane is going to, so we almost do take him for granted. But if you look at his stats, it is extraordinary. 66 goals in 56 games for club and country this season. 78 goals for his country. He's scored 8 goals in 11 World Cup matches. And do you know what? That bothers him. I know how much he cares about the statistics, and he doesn't hold the record for an Englishman in that. Gary Lineker scored 10 goals in World Cups. You can bet your life that Harry Kane knows that stat and will be trying to beat it at this World Cup. But one thing I would just, while we're on the stats of Harry Kane, point out is he's played an awful lot of football, and that is a concern for England. And it's why I think Thomas Tuchel has picked 2 other strikers in the squad, Ivan Toney and Ollie Watkins. I think we'll see a lot of them on the pitch. I think Harry Kane will be there for the big moments. If he scored a goal, if England are winning, I think Thomas Tuchel will take him off, wrap him in cotton wool and cold towels to try and get him ready for the next game. They will use him sparingly. And that's because he's played over 4,000 minutes this season, 4,423 minutes. The last season he played for Tottenham, by the way, 3,934. He's played almost 1,000 more minutes this season than he did in his first season in Germany. The England physios, the sports scientists are all very, very aware of that, and so I think they'll use him sparingly.
Yeah, and this also got me and Jay talking before we came to air, and it got us quite hot under the collar, because basically, there's no room for sentiment, is there, for Thomas Tuchel? If Harry Kane's looking like he might get the Golden Boot, there's no way that he will be played to get that Golden Boot, will he? He will be spared if that's what's required, because that's how Thomas Tuchel differs, perhaps, from Gareth Southgate. Jay is shaking his head, by the way.
100%. No, listen, I think that's absolutely true. Thomas Tuchel is no respecter of reputation. He's not interested in personal milestones. He's been brought in by the FA to do one thing, and that's win the World Cup for England. That's why he's left some huge names at home. It's why he's brought in the unfancied Jarrell Quansah to his teams. He thinks that's the best option. It's why he's stuck with Dan Burn throughout the whole of qualifying, where some people might say, a lot of pundits have said, Harry Maguire should be in instead of Dan Burn. He will live or die by his instincts and the big decisions, Thomas Tuchel. And if that means taking Harry Kane off when he scored 2 goals and he's on the verge of a hat-trick, he'll take him off. If that means Harry Kane trying to win the Golden Boot, but Thomas Tuchel thinks, I'm saving you for the next game, mate, he will take him off straight away and bring Ivan Toney or Ollie Watkins on. So, yeah, there is absolutely no room for sentiment from this head coach. He is ruthless in his determination to try and win this World Cup. That's why the FA appointed him. It's why his bosses like him. It's why England's fans should be optimistic.
Yes.
Rob, we're going to have to agree to disagree on that one, because I can't see Harry Kane coming off much. But one thing I want to ask you, Rob, is that when we've seen Harry Kane at his best at Tottenham and now at Bayern Munich, it seems like both of those teams play for him.
2026 World Cup, which starts in just a week's time. We know that the heat and humidity are going to play a big part this summer, so how will the competitors handle it? Well, Dr. Ben Rosenblatt was the FA's lead on physical performance between 2016 and 2023. As you can see, joins us now. Look, good to see you, Ben. Look, we've heard so much about the heat being a major challenge. From a professional point of view, from you, how do the staff go about countering the threat to the players?
Great. Look, thank you thank you very much for having me on. First thing is there's probably 4 components. The first one is the player's perception of the heat itself. So making sure that they've spent time in hot conditions prior to the competition is really, really important. So they know how to manage themselves throughout it. Second is the physiological component. So that is essentially the adaptations that take place to heat-based training can take place over a number of weeks. And that's based on how hot you can get the players safely for how long. So if you can get them hot for a long time, then some of the physiology in their body starts to change, which allow them to adapt to the heat and to be able to perform within it. A third component is definitely around the individuals. There'll be some players who respond better to that type of training and who can tolerate the heat better than others. So it's watching out for the ones that can't and making sure there's more individualized strategies around them. And the final one is acutely within the matches themselves. So whether that is cooling them down, making sure they remain hydrated and they've got enough carbohydrate to make sure they have the energy to compete.
Yeah, sounds easy, doesn't it, when we're sat here in air-conditioned rooms? Look, and talking of which, a few of the stadiums are air-conditioned, but not all of them. So give us an idea of the difference that air conditioning can make to the planning for a game.
Well, look, clearly, if there is aircon, it's going to make things a lot more comfortable. But I think as a performance team going into a tournament, you have to be prepared for the worst case scenario. And the worst case scenario is that it's really hot, there's altitude, it's humid. Some of the adaptations that take place to heat-based training and improving heat tolerance as well are really beneficial for performance in normal temperatures as well. Things like having slightly higher blood volume, being a little bit fitter aerobically, and being able to sweat a little bit more as well to be able to make your body cool down more efficiently. So I think all those, to prepare for the worst case scenario is an advantage regardless of what stadiums you're going to be playing at.
OK, so what lessons do you think we'll have learnt from the Club World Cup last summer? Because that was pretty hot, wasn't
it? yeah, it was really hot. I think there's a couple of things there. Like one, I think the players themselves who played there would have experienced that, yes, it was physically demanding and it was hot and uncomfortable, but their tolerance to the heat improved as it went on. So hopefully there's some good stories from players within the England team to be able to share about that. And I think secondly that it's possible. You can adapt your tactics, you can adapt your game style, you can put really cutting edge interventions in place to make sure that players can tolerate those types of conditions and fundamentally try and beat the opposition.
Ben, Jay Bothroyd here. When I was playing football in Japan, especially the games in and around Tokyo, it was really, really hot. And we actually got told to wear more clothes to adapt to the heat. What do you think about that?
Yeah, well, I think that's part of this thing that I spoke. The second point I made at the top there, which is around increasing your thermal, increasing your thermal load essentially. So what happens is, as you get hot, you start sweating. You've got more clothes on you. That will stop the heat evaporating off you and keep you hot and keep you warm. So that'll increase your thermal load for a longer period of time, which will give you a better opportunity to adapt to the heat. So there's lots of different ways, lots of different tactics you can deploy to try and do that. And that's definitely one of them, and one we used with the GB hockey team in the build-up to the Rio Olympics as well.
Ben, also, when I was out there, we got told to drink more electrolytes than water.
Yeah.
Do you believe in that, or do you think water is the most important thing?
Well, one of the things that's going to happen when you take electrolytes in is it's going to increase your, the gut permeability with carbohydrate as well. So it's going to increase the ability of that fluid to get into your body at a higher rate. So that's really, really important. Secondly, all of us are really individual and will have different sweat compositions. So some of us might lose more sodium, some of them might lose more potassium or magnesium. So I wonder if what you did at the time was did a sweat patch analysis and to have a look at individually what your sweat composition was. And you can have drinks that are really individualized and made up really, really specifically just for you to make sure that you've got the right fuels that you need to compete.
Yeah, sounds impressive. Just finally, let's talk about the European teams. Do you think they're at a disadvantage? Because actually Germany, I think, were the only European team to win a World Cup in the Americas. So do you think they are at a disadvantage at the moment?
I did wonder that, actually. But the thing that I became curious about was how many players from the, from the South American nations, from the nations where the climate is naturally hotter, are already playing in Europe. Already training in Europe and competing in Europe at the same time. So because it's such an international game, I wonder whether there is that distinct level of advantage, because fundamentally players are competing and training all over the world, and Europe can get pretty hot as well.
Yeah, it certainly can. It did last week, but it's all gone now. Totally chucking it down here. Anyway, thank you very much indeed.